Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speaking Moistly. With me, as usual, on Thursday is Jilly. Jilly, how you doing?
Hi, good. Thanks.
Good, good.
Hopefully
Crazy.
everybody else survived this week.
Yeah, what an election and everything else that's happened. And Marianne Monsef did not get her seat back. That's not bad.
That's a
But,
blessing.
I mean, she can go hang out with her brothers or whatever.
Yes, I think she should do that. And, as soon as she figures out where she was born, that would probably be helpful.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, that was. It's funny when things like that happen, and then like, what's her name? Ephraim, the brother. She married her brother to get him citizenship.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Weird.
Right, isn't that weird? So isn't it weird when things like that happen? And even like I find like even Joe Biden, the whole Joe Biden thing, I find very strange. Like you would expect American rhetoric, right? Like if you were like, listen, in 2020, here's what they did to America, and you'd think like if you're talking to the kind of the personification when I was growing up, the personification of like America was like America, like America, fuck yeah, right? Like don't mess with America, like Team
Don't tread on
America,
me.
world
There's a
police.
flag.
They're going to show up and like, just like, bam, you're done, right? Don't even think about it. You're not going to win. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things now that it's like, if you were to tell me back then, like they're gonna steal an election so blatantly that like and just pretend like they didn't like pretend like it was a totally above board election. Anybody who disagrees is a batshit crazy person. Might be true, but it doesn't look like it's true. But it's so strange that nothing happened, right? Like it's what, almost a year later, everybody's like, yeah, well, Biden's doing a terrible job, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, like, okay, so what did you expect to happen? That he was going to be brilliant all of a sudden as soon as he got elected? Like, all of a sudden, there was going to be a complete shift in
Yeah.
everything he had done up to that moment. And he was
Well,
going to become amazing.
yeah, I think that they were hoping that like he would undo the Trump years somehow or something like that, but I'm not sure exactly how. But I just expected that there were to be a response. I expected that there would be like people saying that this isn't legitimate or that but I don't know, like I guess Arizona's a response. Like they're auditing the whole election. That's happening on Friday apparently. I don't know what to
I
make of
didn't
that.
hear about that. Well, it's okay. So I have been treading on the dark side a little bit
Mhm.
and listening to some of the things that are being said on the other side of the argument, which I like to do because I like to get out of the bubbles and get an idea of
Yeah.
what else is out there. And it's really, to me, it's really interesting because there's on the other side, let's call it the left side of things,
Mhm.
they are convinced as much as we are convinced about their ideologies and their not seeing evidential proof. They're as convinced of that about us as we are about them.
Right. But it seems, and I mean, like you can see the news and masking is one of the things that I talk about a lot. Like I think the science behind masking is as bunk as the science behind global warming.
This cheese,
Yeah,
it's
but
better placed across your face.
yeah, right. So like, so to me, it seems like people can have their opinion and you can like disagree, but when you've got 30 years of policy level science that says masks don't really do much, like calling names is not how you win that argument, but it's how the argument has been won. So it's a weird thing to live through where like, yeah, there's a bunch of people with a bunch of opinions about things, but the reality doesn't back up any of their bullshit.
No,
Right?
exactly. And I was watching something from 1980 with Barbara Emile, her name is.
Okay.
It was an interview with her, and she was talking about the way in the CBC, even back in 1980, they were changing the language to manipulate reality.
Yes.
So this is
Well,
something that we've been facing for decades, and it's
yes.
not going to unwind overnight.
No, I agree. So in the 1980s, so I was watching that documentary I've been referencing recently, and it's called Hypernormalization. And basically what they said was in the 1970s, they realized that the political reality of the world was way too complicated. Like it is not as simple as left, right. It's just like, it's so crazy that nobody could possibly like fit it in their heads. So they decided, they being the people who own the TV stations and things, they were just going to simplify it, make it real easy for Americans, left and right. Just split them into groups and it's close enough. So 40 years later, right, the reality they constructed through media, because that's not really real, because the people who knew what was really real said, this is way too complicated. We couldn't possibly tell them all this. So they put up a false reality, which it's got a thread of real, right? Like I've said,
the Matrix, but
yes,
now the
that's
hens have
exactly
come home to roost.
Right. The chickens have come home to roost. And we're like, that, like what you're telling us on our media doesn't actually match what we see out there. And so that's the difference, right? Like the constructed real world in the media landscape, which is the real world that we have to live in, but it's anchored by these devices, like the laptop I'm talking on, the phone I've got here, because that's where the reality is constructed. Whereas in the 80s, it was constructed in newspapers. Now it's constructed in real time. The people who were talking about reimagining history, they were imagining being able to edit it in real time. And now they can just remove the page, put up a new page, looks exactly the same, different information. Poof.
Yes.
Right? Like we have always been at war with East Asia. Yeah.
And it's interesting. Well, 1984 reference, nice. But the other thing that I found really interesting is the evolution of some of these platforms, because I remember whenever the Arab Spring was happening on Twitter, and you would see from people actually right there recording what was happening and talking about it from their perspective, which was like real news as it's happening, but coming from a citizen journalist, essentially talking to their friends or their family members from other parts of the world. It was absolutely incredible. And that power to me was amazing. It gave us so much ability to share our stories, which to me was always a big thing. But yes, then it was manipulated, and they've used it.
The Arab Spring itself, and I don't mean to interrupt, but the Arab Spring itself was a manipulation, I think. Like so the United States engages in regime change all the time, like all the time. It's like we've got this conflict brewing here. Who's the president, right? Like not who's the president of the United States, who's the president of the place that we've got a conflict with? Can we buy them off? First question. Second question, can we overwhelm them? Third question, can we justify the overwhelming of them with military force? And so the United States doesn't engage necessarily in diplomacy the way other countries need to engage in diplomacy. They send their CIA, or CIA is the foreign one, right? CIA to destabilize
FBI
wherever.
is domestic, CIA is international.
Right, exactly. So they send their CIA, and they say, we've got a thing here, and they say, well, I've got a plan, but don't ask me about it. Says the CIA, right? Don't worry about that guy. We'll handle that.
It's all good.
Yeah.
We got this.
So
and I mean, someone that was talking about it ages ago was Noam Chomsky. He's done a documentary about it, but he also wrote a book about it, Manufacturing Dissent. And he showed two almost identical situations in the world were happening at different times, but very close in time. And with one group, the American media painted it as it was the rebels that were the bad guys. And in the other one, they painted it as the rebels were the good guys. Almost identical situations at almost identical period of time. And it was shocking, like how the media will manipulate things on behalf of the government to get favor with the government, i.e. access.
I think that it's worse than that. So when I wrote my book talking about the government and YouTube silencing me, and in writing that book, I found that Dr. Shiva in the States has an active, open case against Twitter and the US government. And what had happened was Dr. Shiva, had fallen into, he took Twitter to court for violation of his First Amendment rights, the free speech, right? And Twitter said, we didn't violate your rights. It's actually at the behest of the government. And so the judge was like, well, it is the government. And so the government has to come in on this. And so Shiva's in a lawsuit against Twitter and the government now, talking about them silencing his speech. So I think it's worse than what you're describing, because it's not just Twitter.
I didn't mean it as just a
no. I know. I'm saying
everywhere.
it's done. But it's not the private company itself. It's not Twitter or YouTube or Amazon or Google.
Because I've noticed this with the whole situation we currently find ourselves in, without mentioning any vacations or any kind of code words like that. There, what I've heard is that people who have businesses are being told if they don't have the vacation, their business will be shut down.
The policies,
whether
yeah.
they are in it, like working in it or not, their business will be shut down. So they go to the banks to get some help in fighting this and covering things until they can get it sorted out. They're told by the bank, unless you have your vacation, you're not going to get any help from us. Or it's just, they're asked if they have it and then just denied the loan. But if you try to fight it, for example, again, Elections Canada said, well, it's not us that are saying you can't come in without a mask. It's the business where we've leased the space to do the election, like for you to vote.
Yeah.
So you can't go after Elections Canada for it. You can't go after the business either, because if you try, the business will say, well, I'm just following the health guidelines that have been put forward.
Yep.
And you can't, so then you go to whoever the health bureaucrat is. You can't go after them either, because one, they're unaccountable, but also because they're saying, well, we're just following what the government has said that we should do, and we're just enforcing to the business. So it's this circular thing where there's nobody taking responsibility for anything, and you can't hold anybody responsible for anything, because they can always say, no, it's the other guy.
Yeah, the circle of non-accountability, and it's
Exactly.
terrible. And I've talked about this before. I hold my mayor Cam Guthrie's feet to the fire because I can't believe that anybody would stand by and watch this as it rolls out and not do anything to protect the people who elected you. But yeah, I talk about it a lot because we don't elect the medical officers of health. They're just hired, right? And now they have more power than the mayors, more power than the municipalities, more power than the premier. And so I hold Cam Guthrie and all these people's feet to the fire to say, we have zero accountability and you're enabling that, right? But further, it's not these companies, just like in the example that you've given in the real world, it's not us, it's them, right? And it's this big circle. YouTube is saying, well, it's not us, it's the government that's targeting you, and we're just doing what the government says. And then the government's saying, well,
and the government is saying, oh no, it's not us,
it's the business. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you can't find well, there's nobody to hold accountable, right? And it's not like
it's honestly, it's like critical race theory. It's just a circular thing where you can't argue it because there's no end point. There's no beginning, there's no end. It's just this hazy kind of thing out there. It's like a vapor.
Yep.
Try to grab a vapor, you can't.
Yeah. Well, and so vax passports now are implemented. Doug Ford says temporary, just like the temporary mask mandate. What was the exit? What was the exit? And I enjoyed pointing this out at the beginning, and now I loathe it. But at the beginning, I was like, what are the success metrics? When can we repeal this mask mandate? And nobody would answer my question. And I was like, you should have success metrics, you idiots.
Before you implement something like that, you need to have what the outcome is so that it can be removed.
How do we know we've done
it? It has to have parameters. Where are the parameters? Where have they been? They're still non-existent, and we're nearly 2 years into this.
And they won't be existent because people are quite happy about this whole thing. And it's such a strange thing. Why are people happy about this? Who cares? Who doesn't care about this? Everybody's like, this is ridiculous.
What is that syndrome called where you fall in love with your captors? That's the one.
Yeah, Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. That's, I think most of the world is currently suffering Stockholm syndrome.
I can agree with that. But the thing is, though, it's deadly. It's deadly because we're gonna walk ourselves into a communist hellhole. The supply chain stuff that's coming out right now, the shipping prices and the trucking stuff in the UK. Have you heard about this?
I haven't.
So in the UK, gasoline is there are gas stations that are running out of gasoline, but more urgently, there are natural gas companies that are going bankrupt because the price of natural gas delivery has increased 250% in a year since last year, 70% since August. We're in September, since August. Okay, 70%. So these companies are insolvent. They can't. So the customers aren't going to accept a 250% increase in price, and these companies can't deliver what they said. They can't buy the product to sell to the people because they don't have the money.
I find it interesting that that's happening in the UK whenever they have oil and gas right off the shores of Edinburgh.
Isn't it interesting though? They don't have, the problem is there's no truck drivers. because the COVID policies are effing the staffing for everything. So there's no truck drivers, and soon there won't be any trucks because the parts for repair are on back order until April 22. And I'm talking about the large drivetrains, like the central drivetrains. I tweeted about it yesterday. So,
well, hey, they have all of those computerized self-driving lorries in
no chips.
Okay? So no chips. Okay.
No chips. All the brains are gone, man. All the brains are gone. All the silicone chips. So they shut down manufacturing.
That was something that was well thought out, wasn't it? Gee, we never thought
it was well thought. We didn't. They thought about it. They shut it down last year, and we're only seeing it now. You see?
Yeah.
Like they did it on purpose. The October email that came out, it was spot on. It was exactly right. It knew exactly when the supply chain issues were going to hit. Why? Because the supply chain was shut down last year, and now they're working through their 18-month, 20-month of stuff in warehouses and stuff, moving things around, but shipping and everything's a nightmare now. And so I think they're hiding a lot of the supply chain issues with shipping problems. And I think things are, I said this morning that everybody's going to kind of look around at the debris after this whole thing goes off. Cause like we're twisting it tighter and tighter and tighter. And then like when it pops, everybody's gonna be like, holy shit, what happened? And we're just like, we're not gonna see it go. We're just gonna see the debris landing and be like, what the hell?
Well, it kind of feeds into things. I was actually in insurance and investment industry back during the Great Recession, which was all kinds of fun. Not, but back then what they were saying, those like sort of in those circles were saying like all that has happened with the fixes that they put in is a delay of the bubble that should have hit then and probably should have hit before that. So it's going to hit eventually. And when it does hit, because they've only put a Band-Aid over a huge gash, it's going to be 20 times as bad, if not hundreds of times as bad.
Yeah. They put a Band-Aid over the gash and they keep jabbing in there too. Exactly. It's like, oh, well, we need another 424 million today. And they're like, really? But we just put a Band-Aid. You really should? Okay, we just put a Band-Aid on it though. Okay.
Yeah, those Band-Aids are not going to hold forever, and they're bound to start to slip. I mean, we're about to hit some really hard walls.
Well, you're seeing the inflation in the prices of food and stuff. But again, I think that we're going to see, here's my prediction, right? If I'm what's his name? Carson, I got the envelope, right? My prediction is that by October, maybe after Thanksgiving, maybe before, we're going to not be allowed to go to Walmart if we're unvaccinated, probably after maybe the 22nd, maybe when the beep, like when there's these guys and not the paper, they'll say unvaccinated people can't go to Walmart and they can do online and just pick it up outside.
I actually heard from a friend in Calgary, Alberta, this morning. I got the message, and it was a recording where he was telling me he was out for drinks with a friend last night or the night before, since they've put in their whole mandates.
Yep.
And they found a bar eventually that they could go and have a drink outside in. However, on all of these bars and restaurants, it said essentially those who are unvaccinated are unwelcome.
Yep.
So he did find this restaurant, and they sat down, had their drink, and at the end he said, I've got to go to the bathroom. Said to the manager, like, I'm just going in to use the bathroom. And the manager said, well, you have to put on a mask. And he just looked at him and said, I think I'm just going to use the bathroom. And he went, pushed past him and went and used the bathroom. And I mean, he was lucky because the police could have been waiting for him whenever he left the bathroom. You know, because again, it's that circular thing. The manager is just trying to save their business from being shut down. So they call the police to get that enforced. And you know, if my friend goes to fight it from there, he didn't, like nothing happened. But if something were, how can he fight that? Because he's not doing as requested by the manager of the business, you know?
Yeah, like but they're not police. Manager of the business says, put your hands up on the wall. I'm like, you put your hands up on the wall.
You can't do that. Well, I don't do anymore, because I remember whenever I took business law in college, and I remember my professor saying, well, he was kind of a funny guy, and he said, go into a grocery store or something, put products into the pockets of your coat, and just keep wandering around with stuff in your pockets and go near the doors, but not out the doors. He says, because they cannot hold you. They cannot arrest you, especially if you put the stuff back. Like,
yeah.
it's law that no business or organization can hold you against your will.
Mhm.
Therefore, no matter what you do within the store, you're not stealing.
Yep.
When you
Yep.
leave, that's whenever you commit the crime.
Yep.
So if they try to do something like that, you can sue them, which was, his big joke. Well,
it's the same reason Joe Biden's president.
Potentially.
You can't get somebody for stealing your car if they just sit in the driveway and shift the gears, right? They don't drive it anywhere. It's like, get out of the car, Joe. You gotta
yes, please
stop,
get out of the car.
Yeah, you can't drive it.
Again,
Come on, man.
Call
Yeah. So I don't know what's gonna happen. But I fear that it's gonna get worse. Like, have you been paying attention to Australia? Have you seen Australia?
Yes. Yeah, that's scary.
What do you think? What are the chances that comes here, you think?
To me, Australia is far more in your face than Canada is, which is even more terrifying. Because I think Australians will stand up far sooner than what Canadians will, because Canadians are bent on saying, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a weird cultural trait. Like, we're very sorry we got in your way and, like, hacked civilization out of this wilderness.
We're very sorry you got in our way.
Yeah.
And we tripped over you and hurt ourselves because you sort of pushed us.
Yeah.
We're sorry we offended you by being right about something.
Yes, indeed. Safe space.
The ongoing Canadian way. And I mean, we laugh about it, but it's also to our detriment at this point, because we're letting things happen and almost being apologetic for it, because that is our cultural norm, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Right. And so I don't know how to stop people from doing that. Like, stop people from just being complacent in it. I'm complacent in it because, like, I mean, you have to live, right? You have to participate in the society that you are a part of. And it's like, if I was talking about in order to run away from what's happening, you have to basically, like, be the Incredible Hulk from the 1970s television show, right? Like, you walk into town and then tell people they wouldn't like you when you're angry, and then, right? It's a whole thing, right?
Yes.
I love that show when I was a kid.
Me too.
But yeah, but you can't, like, if you have connections with people and, like, they don't see things exactly the same way as you see things, it's very difficult to say, all right, well, time to wrap it up. Where are we going? Denmark? Like, Denmark looks good. They're undoing it. Sweden, like, they're all right. They look good, right? Like, it doesn't, if you could go down to Florida for 6 months and be assured that, one, Biden wasn't going to invade Florida with a militarized something, or remove DeSantis and put in his own governor.
Yeah, because you think
which
about
would trigger a civil war.
If Biden were to do something like that, who is going to come to America's rescue?
Who's going to come to America's rescue? He doesn't have to. What? Like, based on what he's done, who's going to come?
Invasion or something? It's the Americans that come in and save wherever it is. But now, if it's America doing this, where are you going to go?
It's probably the CIA. It's probably right, because they're the foreign guy and they've hired some people. They're just like, we got to take control of this situation. We'll get America back. Maybe, probably not.
Please.
I don't know, man. I don't know. No, the CIA, I think, are the bad guys. I don't think they're coming to save anybody. I think they're the ones who, like, had something to do with it.
Started all that espionage stuff back in World War I, and it's been a mistake ever since.
I think, well, yeah. If any intelligent person, right? Like, if you are, say you are the owner of, like, a basketball team or something like that, you're not also the coach, right?
No.
You step back. You're not also the GM. You get to fire the GM. So if you view yourself as the owner of the West or something like that, you're not the president. You get to fire the president. You get to be like, this guy's gone.
Yeah,
that's that, right? So, like, I feel like we don't understand our system in a very fundamental way. I think that we've got a system that is very much like owners of basketball teams with a GM and a coach, and we get a say on the GM and the coach, but we don't get a say on the owner. And the owner's picking up the phone going, this one, deep six him, done. He's out. get another one in there because this one's not doing what I want. So like, I
Let
think
him
that
out of his jib. Get him out of there.
done, right? Like, but if I was setting up the world, if I was in a position where I could make that so, I would definitely make that so. And not because I'm an evil, maniacal person or anything like that, but that's just how it makes sense. Like, you can't run things and own things of something like that because there's far too many competing and conflicting interests, right? And you can't control it at the micro level, but you can manage it at the micro level, right? Like you could almost, right? If your guy is Barack Obama and you call him up and you're like, listen, Barack, I've got some advice for you, right? You do what you want, but this is the owner talking. I got some advice, right? What are you going to do, right? You're going to do what he says, right? Even if it's wrong, you're like, oh man, we tried it. I thought it was going to work too.
Yeah. And I mean, the owners are supposed to be the people. I mean, that's where our evolution was heading. And yet we seem to be somehow reversing that.
It's like in a sales situation or like a politics situation where the politician says something and he wants you to believe, like, we're going to take care of housing. And he means housing for a certain subsection. And he didn't mean you, but you vote for him thinking that he did, right? Like,
yes.
Right. That's
because he leaves out that little detail.
Yeah. Right. It's the ways to manipulate people are many. And I feel like we bamboozle ourselves because we don't ask. We're like, he said he's for housing. So it's like, got to vote for him. Right. And then.
Yeah, nobody's asking. I mean, that is actually the job of the media, is to ask those difficult questions and to see the potential loopholes. But over the past few years with social media, well, I mean, it was before that, but it's gotten even more exacerbated since social media. The media is not doing their job. They are not asking the tough questions. You have alternative media that's trying to, but getting shut down and villainized at every opportunity because they're asking the tough questions that the mainstream media won't ask. So we have this situation where the ones that have the bigger voice are not doing what they need to be doing so that we have that ability to get the whole story. Because Joe Average isn't going to go up to a politician and ask that question. And even if you do, because I tried, I've tried to ask various politicians across the country for details on the things that they're saying. I asked the NDP HQ questions about some of the things that Jagmeet Singh was talking about. First of all, they don't answer their phones. Secondly, they will not return a phone call. Third, like, you can email them, you can try to shame them in social media into answering a question. They won't do it. And the only ones that can make them are the media that are supposed to be doing that, but they won't because they're bought and paid for.
And even like Rebel News, they do a good job with asking questions, but the politicians shut them down. The liberals don't answer questions that they don't like. So it's a very frustrating problem. Jagmeet, did you see the shower thing with Jagmeet Singh? He's in the shower.
Oh, was that from a while back where he was singing or something?
It was on election day. I think. And he was sitting in a shower with the shower on, and it said vote NDP.
I heard about it. But
and he's like, he had a shirt on. Like, I think it was a shirt. Anyway. It didn't look like a robe. If it was a robe, it was a short robe. Anyway, and he's sitting in this shower with like clothes, and then the shower's on, and it had Dido in the background, like. And it was like sad tears if you didn't vote for the NDP. And it's like, what the heck? Like, this is a serious politician. And the way I saw it was somebody was tweeting like, Canada is not a serious country. And I was like, that is absolutely true. Like, it is sadly absolutely true. Oh,
look at our prime minister.
Well, and even,
what did you say more?
Yeah. And even the premiers, like I'm shocked at the lack of accountability, but we talked about that, but the lack of ability for the premiers to stand up for the people who elected them. And they are trying to say that they are. Doug Ford is saying it's more important to protect the progress we've made. And so that's why we have to bring in the vaccine passports. I don't think anybody has articulated exactly how these vaccine passports are supposed to work. If the masks didn't work and the vaccines themselves increased cases, how is the vaccine passport gonna help? If the vaccine doesn't stop you transmitting it, doesn't stop you like giving it and getting it.
But wait.
Work?
can we say vaccine, or do we need to say things like vacation?
Oh, I got to put it up on Rumble. I'm assuming that like, yeah, I
You're
don't
just
know.
gonna like axe us anyway. So
Yeah, I
you
can't. I don't.
can't say certain words.
I just think it's wrong. I think that it's ill. It's poorly advised to moderate the conversation to appease YouTube. I think that I think that that's wrong. I don't think that's the right way to approach. But I mean, like, that's just because this is if I was doing this content for somebody else, if somebody was like, can you make me a video? I'd probably avoid, that. But like, but I think that if the conversation goes there, I think it would be dishonest to avoid it. And so I'll put it up,
It's hard
roll the
to
dice,
do.
we'll see.
Well, I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, it's so hard to figure it out. And I mean, we have these big platforms that are the ones that are getting the audience because the audience is already there. So, I mean, there was, what was it, MySpace versus Facebook? There's that argument all the time. Well, MySpace was the thing, Facebook comes in and just totally obliterated them. But I don't know if that's possible in the current zeitgeist.
And they're making it even more difficult. Like I was saying, if you're Joe Rogan now, it's really hard to get 1 million followers if you're saying things that people don't like, right? If you say men can be women anytime they want, and like Black Lives Matter, hashtag woozle woozle, whatever the heck the thing is, then you'll get promoted and people will follow you. But the second you Nicki Minaj them, holy smokeronies, they're gonna X you, right? Done. And when I'm doing this, I mean, they're canceling you. I don't mean that they're going to kill you. Same with before. The president's not calling to, or the owner's not calling to kill the president. He's calling to like deep six him, right? He's done. He's a former president. Get him out of there, right? He's not done.
No, well, you don't have to actually kill somebody anymore. All you have to do is kill their reputation.
Yeah, unperson them and kill their reputation. Make living in society like something that they cannot do, and you've won. Like they killed themselves. They take care of that, right? Yeah. It's absolutely 100% right. It is terrifying because we've done this to ourselves. Like we've just allowed this to happen, but not without encouragement. Like we haven't just sat by idly. Like people who tried to fight. Look at what happened to Mark Friesen. Right? Look at what's happening to Maxime Bernier. Look at what happened to Byron Bridle. Look at what happened to, like, I could continue naming people who've had their names, who are good people who've had their names dragged through the mud for nothing. Right? Look at the people who stand up for unborn people. Look at Laura Lynn Tyler Thompson. Like how is like defending an unborn baby's rights right wing?
Well, I mean, okay, you go even to the minuscule, because there was Kathy Wagenthal tried to put through this bill that would protect the rights of sex-selected abortion. So baby girls, because they were being murdered for the very fact that they were female. But that's not how the liberals presented it whenever they were arguing against it. What they said was it was an attempt to stop abortions. They wouldn't even look at the fact that if you're going to be a feminist, shouldn't you be protecting all female rights and not just those that fit your comfortable existence?
In a blitzkrieg attack, you never ever give back land that you've taken. And that's like, we've been blitzkrieg attacked by this group of people for a long time. It's unbelievable. Like I hear what you're saying, but politically it is toxic in Canada to even talk about it, which is wild.
Well, I mean, incredible. Okay, so I will put out my premise on feminists. Whenever I was 10 years old, I think about there, grade 6, my grade 6 teacher, who was a radical feminist, gave me the book Sex and the Single Girl. Now, if I was a mother now, I would, and it was my daughter that was given to, I would absolutely raise bloody hell. But my parents were, otherwise engaged. So I got this book, I read it, I thought feminism was great. And then I started reading more stuff about it. And then I started going, oh my goodness, these people are crazy and they hate
men.
Yeah, and not just men. And here's where that sort of feeling from that sort of nugget sort of evolved over time. I believe that feminists hate themselves for being women as much, if not more, than they hate men. Because it's like they hate the pretty girls, they hate the smart girls, they hate being average is really what the deal is, but they're blaming that on men.
So, I mean, it's an interesting premise. I am not a woman, but I would agree that it's probably a very plausible reading of the situation, because like I tell my son and my daughter, and I tell people, anybody who will listen, envy is the thief of joy, right? So if you hate the pretty girls because they're pretty, and if you hate the smart girls because they're smart, man, you got to find your thing, right? You got to stop hating people. You got to find the thing that makes you special, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and like,
and being a woman doesn't make you less than a man.
no.
But they seem to think it does somehow.
Yeah, well, this whole
I mean,
premise.
Back in the day, there were reasons to try to fight for equal rights and equal pay and what have you. Those reasons are long gone.
Yep, but they still got fight in them.
Because they're not happy with who they are as women and think that they're oppressed because they're women, not because they're average.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that, oh man, I had something to say and I can't remember. It just jumped right out of my head. I can't remember. I think, huh?
Find your thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that when you're constantly comparing yourself and looking to fight, then like you're going to find something to fight for. Somebody mentioned, what was it, 2008? Ontario, women were declared you could go around topless. It wasn't illegal anymore. How many people do you see taking it? Like, how many women are walking around doing this? It's not happening. They're just fighting for the sake of fighting. It doesn't make a lot of, you're not gaining anything. And really, like, there's a loss of, like, I say this a lot, but Karen from accounting is not going to be there to celebrate your 96th birthday, or to have the end of life conversations that you're going to have. Your kids might be, if you're real lucky, right? And even then, maybe not, but definitely Karen from accounting is not. Your work is work, and you should choose things that make you feel fulfilled, but there's nothing in the world that will make you fulfilled and have as long a lasting impact as having a family. And I think that it's really jarring to have so many media pushes or so much media pressure on, like, not having children or limiting your children. I mean, even having one is great. Like, that's wonderful. I think it's really enriching for a person, but like, not having a child and then hitting 50 and having to go through that because you made that choice and not for other things, that's difficult, I think, right? And you can fix that by finding somebody to invest in, because, like, if you put time into somebody, they'll want to put time into you, right? But it's fostering selfishness, right? The current society fosters your own selfishness, and what they don't tell you is that, like, it's much more rewarding, like giving a Christmas gift. Like, when you've got a gift that you're really excited to give somebody and you like can't wait, that's almost better than getting a really great gift, right? Like, when you give somebody a gift that they appreciate, right? And that's what it's like having a kid, right? Like, if for me anyway, it's not always like that either, but
I have one that I absolutely adore. He's not speaking to me right now because of all of the mess that the whole situation has created, because he doesn't agree with me. He agrees with, he's bought into all this stuff, and it's incredibly difficult. But you know what? I wouldn't trade having raised him. And I just hope that this time shall pass as well, and we'll get back to the relationship we had before.
Yep.
But having children is incredibly rewarding. There's actually a television host in the UK who had written a book about how young women have to start thinking about their physiology and how they have a limited time to have children.
Yep.
And if they continue to have this whole procreation pushed off, because we were sold, my generation was sold a lie that, by the time it got sort of dicey for us to have children, there would be the medical ability to continue to have children well into our 50s.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the case.
Nope. Doesn't seem very like a good idea. Kids are expensive. Doesn't seem like a good idea. Kids are expensive.
They're expensive. For a woman, it's hard on the body to give birth to have a human being grow within you and then give birth to that child.
Yep.
Raising them, the energy it takes.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how you and your wife do it. Like, you're
it's
crazy
fun.
busy.
It's fun. We are a little busy. That's all right. It's fun though. But it's worthwhile, and the energy we put into them will be returned and that's not, but that's not the point either. Like it's not done,
Mhm.
it's not done tit for tat. It's done because that's what humans do. That's what we're supposed, that's what we're built for. That's
Mhm.
what's fulfilling. So
Exactly.
maybe
And then
that's,
you know that's your legacy too, because you know
mhm,
if you raise those children well, they're going to go out in the world and do good things as well. And
yeah,
that just keeps bringing, it keeps evolving society and making us all better together.
yeah.
But
I
it takes
watched,
having that family.
I watched my mom fight. I watched my mom fight for me for things that she thought were right. And my dad was he supported my mom in fighting, and he was content to let her do it. He was content to be like, yeah, I'll what she says, right? But I watched my mom fight, and she said, this is what moms and dads do. Like this is, you
Yep.
stand in front of your kids, and like I worked with kids for 15 years. Part of my job was to advocate for children, and one of the things that was trained in my schooling was that, like, if you saw the director of the agency you worked for doing something wrong, it didn't matter that they were the director or anything like that, you spoke up. Like you protected those kids no matter what. Like
Mhm.
that's the job.
And that's the right thing to do.
It is the right thing to do. And so like when I started working at that place, I took at that place, the place that I worked when I was younger in kids mental health, but all through I took it very seriously. I took it very seriously when I was working with kids with behavioral issues. You stand up for those kids, you advocate for those kids. I took it seriously when I worked with kids with Down syndrome or autism, and I did my best to articulate and stand up for those kids, and I do my best to articulate and stand up for my kids and their health and their well-being. And I think that having that outlook, not having the outlook to protect your kids, but raising kids knowing that they're worth protecting, raising kids knowing that, you know, your mom and dad are going to make sure that, you know, nothing hurts you, right? The shit hits them first, and then if there's any, right? But that will raise strong kids. So I'm hoping, right, that my kids will be strong, and they are. I mean, they are strong. So, and we'll see when they're older and when they have kids. I've told them it's the meaning of life. I told them that's it. If you want to know what the meaning of life is, that's it. You have a good family, and you raise them well, and you love them fiercely, right, and without apology. That's what it is. Oh, I was going to say to you, you know the end of Home Alone?
Sort of.
Tear jerker. Come on, the end of Home Alone. The old man with the shovel, right? He was estranged from his family because him and the father, his son didn't agree. And then the end of Home Alone, Kevin's mom gets home, and then they've had their reunion. He's looking out the window, and the other guy's family is driving up, right? So I hope you have your Home Alone moment. I hope that works out. But there's nothing more important than family. So bury the hatchet.
Yes,
Do what you need to do.
And I think that's what we need to encourage and support, and stop telling lies to people who should be allowing themselves to want that. Because I think that's the thing. People were not allowed to want that because they would be made to feel guilty or like they weren't contributing enough.
Yeah.
If you have children and raise good kids, you've contributed more than enough.
Yeah, lots. All right, that seems like a good place to end it. So, final thoughts there, Jill?
Final thoughts. The more things change, the more they stay the same, and this too shall pass.
Oh, I hope so. I hope so. Fingers crossed. Final thoughts. I think we covered it pretty well today. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co for our back catalog, and me and Greg as well on Tuesdays. I'm sporadic in updating it, but it's got most things there. Thanks for watching, and I'll end the call here, or I'll end the recording. Hold on.